Violence is not always physical. And how often do we think about the humiliating behavior, verbal abuse, threats, and blackmails as serious violence? Do they affect you as much as physical abuse does? Perhaps yes. In my view, if you say strong, nasty words to someone, it's reasonable enough to feel threatened, disturbed, and affected mentally. That gives rise to psychiatric injury, and verbal abuse is an assault to the nervous system. It violently agitates your mind. Our first speaker today is going to give us an insight on physical and verbal abuse and how we can eliminate such violence. Noma Koranteng is the co-founder and co-owner of Luhlaza group of companies and operational investment company, which owns manufacturing and engineering businesses. She is a social advocate for equality and representations of women, gender-based violence, and economic participation of small businesses. She is one of the first Black industrialists in the country, produced in the foundry industry. Noma is also a recipient of the Exceptional Woman of Excellence in Leadership Award from the Women Economic Forum, New Delhi, India, the largest global gathering of women entrepreneurs and world leaders. She is also a qualified industrial psychologist and director of the Institute of Directors of Southern Africa. Thank you, Noma, for joining us today. The issue of verbal abuse is indeed a thought-provoking topic. So I welcome Noma to share her thoughts on this.
Fatima, for that introduction. It is a huge honor to be here today and joining No Passport Voices on this very important topic, which is gender-based violence against women. Good afternoon, or should I first say good morning, since we are global. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Before I start, I'd like us to take a moment of silence for all the women around the world who have been killed by men due to gender-based violence. Thank you. Particularly in my country, I'd like to honor the following women who have been killed and who have been abused by men in South Africa. And the reason I'm wearing black today is to honor these women and to remember these women, and also to say to our government in South Africa to have the same urgency that they've had with the lockdown when it comes to violence against women. Rest in power. Oyinene Mkhwetyane. Chepakhatso Pule. Naledi Pangindawo. Nompulelelo Chaka. Nomfazi Kabada. Nwabisa Mgwenendela, Altesia Korki, Lindelwa Penny, and all the young women who were killed by men. The killers thought that they could silence them, but we will speak for them where they cannot. You will never be forgotten. Gender-based violence in South Africa is the second pandemic. It is a national disaster. Being a woman in South Africa right now is a national disaster. We are in a war. Safe at home, no woman is safe at work, in the boardrooms. It's so profound that it is our biggest problem after COVID-19. It is systematic and it is deeply entrenched in institutions, in cultures, and also in traditions in South Africa. The reality I live with as a South African woman is that, will I be a statistic? Will I be part of the gender-based violence stats where 1 in 3 women is sexually abused, physically abused, emotionally abused, verbally abused on a daily basis? Approximately 51.1%, which is 30.5 million of our population in South Africa, is female. Let me paint you a picture of the reality of most women in South Africa right now. Economic vulnerability is a real thing for South African women. We have high unemployment rates and high levels of poverty. Black African women are the most vulnerable, with unemployment rates of over 30%. 30.2% of female female-headed households in South Africa are not employed. Nationally, 43% of children live with mothers only, while only 1/3, which is 33.8%, live with both parents. Almost 50% of assaults, which are committed by someone, it's either someone who's close to you, a friend, an acquaintance, which is about 20%, a spouse or an intimate partner, which is about 15%, a relative or other household member, which is about 13%, and 29% of the assaults that are committed are by unknown person. Although these highlight the physical and sexual abuse stats, the reality is a lot of women are living with emotional and verbal abusers in their homes, in their lives, in relationships. And when we look at this emotional and verbal and psychological abuse, it is where a person engages in a pattern of degrading and humiliating you. This is the kind of abuse that disempowers women. It is the kind of abuse that makes a woman lose her self-worth and self-esteem. Ladies, when a man disempowers you, he will be name-calling you. He will repeat threats to cause you emotional pain, repeated exhibition of obsessive possessiveness or jealousy, invading your privacy and also your integrity and your security. Have you noticed such behavior in your relationship? Because the reality is, it's very difficult sometimes for women to admit that this kind of behavior or friend is abuse. Facts are always there. When someone disempowers you, they make you think that you're not good enough. They make you believe that you can't do this or can't do that, or you can't hang out with your friends, or you can't go out with the people you want to see because of the jealousy behavior that they have. And they'll make you believe that that is love. They don't love you. They are abusing you. And we don't see that because we often trust the men in our lives and we believe that this person is a nice and kind person. There's no way that this person can abuse me. Well, let me tell you, it is abuse. It is called emotional and verbal abuse. And it is happening on a daily basis in women every single day. The effects of verbal and emotional abuse can have an impact on a woman's well-being throughout the rest of her life. It is therefore important to be able to see these red flags. Women have different coping mechanisms when it comes to pain. However, today, I want to stress the importance of therapy. And not just therapy where you go see a counselor, but therapy where you see a clinical psychologist. Someone who will be able to go in depth into counseling with you to address not only the immediate crisis that you are facing, but also the long-term effects, as well as experiences of trauma where related to the current crisis that you're facing or not. You can get one privately, or you can also get one from your government institutions should it be available. The power of therapy, which is something that is not spoken enough about, is that it is healing and it gives you empowerment as a woman to own yourself back after being abused. If you're living with an abuser, because let's face it, the reality is some women who are verbally and emotionally abused will not leave the relationships. They will stay in those relationships because of economic security. And that is one of the biggest reasons why a lot of women in South Africa stay in abusive relationships, because majority of women in South Africa are uneducated and they stay with men due to economic security. As a mom who has a boy child, or should I say as a boy mom, I'm being intentional about raising my son in a loving home environment. And it's especially important that we as women encourage the men in our lives to lead by example in raising our sons. Abused men from childhood normally don't speak up. Some do not even see why. They don't even see that they've been treated. The way they've been treated is abuse. When they enter relationships in their adult life, they have issues that they have not resolved in their childhood. And they end up hurting the women in their lives because those women become the triggers. Be careful. Don't be a trigger to a man. Much of the efforts in South Africa have been focused on response rather than prevention. We need response efforts supported and complemented by prevention programs and policy development that address the underlying and interlinked causes of gender-based violence. We can work towards preventing gender-based violence from happening in the first place, because the important thing is that we need to prevent it from happening in the first place, not respond after the incident has happened. Combined with economic empowerment and gender transformative interventions for women, I believe that we can find a way to reduce gender-based violence when it comes to emotional and verbal abuse towards women. Right now, every single woman in South Africa, if you're able to go down to the social development website, if you have your phone or your laptop open, I would like to encourage you to go right now to the social development website and download the Victim Support Service Bill of 2019. This bill is very important in helping you navigate and surviving gender-based violence should you be a victim of such. And lastly, most importantly, please check in on your friends. We've just come out of lockdown. A lot of people have gone through abuse that we don't even know about. Please check in on your friends, because emotional and verbal abuse leave deadly silent scars where a woman's mental state is traumatized for the rest of her life. Thank you.
Thank you, Noma, for bringing up such an important topic. I think psychological harm is something which is very, very important and that needs much attention now more than ever before. Thank you, Noma, so much. I really appreciate the woman that you are. Thank you.